Let's talk about types of lines. So we have some line pairs listed here. Um, Parallel lines are coplanar but do not intersect. Now coplanar, remember, means they are on the same plane. Parallel lines, the symbol looks like this, and that's exactly what parallel lines look like. Um, Notice in this figure here, A, B, and E, F are parallel. The markings are there, so when they mark a figure, they will put these little chevrons, the arrows, to show a pair of lines that are parallel. Notice A, B, and E, F do not intersect and never will intersect because they're going in exactly the same direction. Notice also that they are on the same plane. So to be parallel, you have to be on the same plane. They're both on the top of that box. They are going in exactly the same direction, so they're never going to intersect. They also tell us that EG and FH are parallel. Here's EG and here's FH. Notice they are marked with 2 arrows on each line, and that's because we have more than one pair of parallel lines in the picture, so we have to signify the separate pairs. If we had another set, we would put 3 arrows on that set. Notice again that these lines are going on in exactly the same direction. They are on the same plane. They are coplanar. They're both on the front side of that box, and they're going in exactly the same direction, so they will never intersect. Okay, so that is parallel lines. All right, next we have perpendicular lines. So here we have a pair of perpendicular lines on our drawing. Now perpendicular lines, it says, intersect at 90-degree angles. They also show you what the symbol looks like for perpendicular. Here, here, and here. That is the symbol for perpendicular. When you see that, you know what that's supposed to mean. They intersect at 90-degree angles, and that's all they have to do. So the examples they give here are AB and AE. There's AE, and here is AB. They mark on a figure right angles with a little square in the corner. That tells us those are perpendicular. The other pair they tell us are EG and GH. Again, notice they form a right angle, and again, notice perpendicular lines or 90-degree angles are marked with that little square in the corner. Okay, so that is perpendicular lines. Okay, next we have what we call skew lines. Now, skew lines are lines that are not coplanar and are not parallel, okay, and do not intersect. So parallel lines, the reason they don't intersect is because they're going in exactly the same direction. Skew lines are different. They don't intersect because they're not on the same plane and wouldn't ever have a chance to intersect. So notice they gave the example of AB up here and EG here. Now notice those two lines will never intersect. If they were on the same plane, the directions they're going would allow them to intersect. But since one's on the front of the box going up and down, and the other's on the top of the box going sideways in the back, they're never going to intersect. Okay, so if you think about it, it's like if you have your ceiling, where your ceiling meets the wall, okay, and then going across the floor, those are never going to intersect. Why? Because one's on the ceiling and the other's on the floor. It's not because they're going the same direction and won't intersect. So that's what skew lines do. So we could find other pairs of skew lines. Let's say this BF here, it would be skew with AC. Okay, so notice they're not going to intersect ever, but it's just because they're not on the same plane, so they would never have that chance. And the last thing they talk about here are parallel planes. Parallel planes are two planes that do not intersect. So, for example, the top of the box and the bottom of the box. Remember, the plane is an entire flat surface. Those are parallel. They're planes that are going in exactly the same direction, so they're never going to intersect. Notice also if we did the right side of the box and the left side of the box, both are going straight up, they're never going to intersect. So that's in a room where you have a plain rectangular room. The ceiling and the floor are parallel planes. They're never going to intersect. The left wall in the room and the right wall in the room are never going to intersect. They are parallel planes. Let's practice this. Identify each of the following. We just have to identify one. There are several. How about a pair of parallel segments? Okay, so we want segments on the same plane. So let's say BC, if that was my first choice, the segment BC. What segment would be parallel to it? Well, we have a couple of options. If we are dealing with the top, okay, the other segment that's going that same direction is DE. Notice they do not intersect and never will intersect, and they are also on the same plane. So segment BC is parallel to segment DE. Now there are lots of parallel segments in this figure. The ones that are marked, here's a pair that's marked, BE, notice the little arrows, and CD are marked. I guess on that first pair I probably shouldn't have assumed they were parallel. BE and CD are marked for sure. Let's see what other pair is marked. Oh, BF and EJ. Notice they have the one little arrow on each of them. That means that they are parallel, and they appear to be parallel. They don't look like they will ever intersect. Okay, what other pairs could we list? Oh, we could go with EJ and DH. Okay, so see, there are lots and lots of correct answers to this problem. We could continue because notice here on the bottom, again, we have parallel FJ and GH. And I guess I really shouldn't have done my first one. They appear parallel, but were not marked that way. But they do look as though they're parallel. Okay, next we're asked to name a pair of skew segments. Again, there are lots of pairs of skew segments here. Let's go with, if we start with our line BF, what is a segment that would be skew with BF? BF is going up and down, so we need a segment that's not on this front plane. It has to be on a different plane, and it has to be going a different direction. So let's see, CD would work. Okay, those are never going to intersect. They are not on the same plane, so that makes them skew. Not intersecting and not on the same plane. They have to have both of those things. Okay, what if we took ED? What is a line that's skew with ED? Well, actually BF is also skew with ED. Okay, and again, there are lots of answers to this question. We could come over here. What about JH? What would JH be skew with? Well, it's skew with BF. We could use BF again. We could come back here and use this line through C and G. Okay, so lots of correct answers here. They only asked for one, but I'm giving you a couple so that you have more examples. Okay, so those are skew lines. Okay, a pair of perpendicular segments. Well, for this one, let's watch for the symbol perpendicular. How is it marked on a figure? Well, we know perpendicular means they form a right angle. Okay, and that's what this symbol here on the picture means, the square in the corner. So I know that the ones they intended me here are BF and FJ. And perpendicular is something you cannot assume. It has to be marked on the figure. But they did mark on the figure that BF was perpendicular to FJ. And that's the only, I don't see any other corners with that marking. And lastly, a pair of parallel planes they want me to find. Again, parallel planes are entire surfaces that will never intersect. And anytime you're dealing with a box, the top, like the ceiling in your room, and the bottom, like the floor of a room, those would be parallel. They didn't give a specific name to the plane, so I'm just going to use letters. Remember, you can name a plane using any 3 letters on the plane. So the top I could call plane BCD, and the bottom I could call any 3 letters on the bottom plane J, H. Okay, notice we could also, in this example, we could also do the left side of the box and the right side of the box. Those are parallel planes. And again, you can use the name of any three letters. So plane on the left side, B, C, and G are all on the left side. And the right side of that box, D, H, and J. Okay. We could also do the front of the box and the back of the box. That would be our last set of parallel planes. Okay, so that just takes you through what parallel, skew, and perpendicular mean and a couple of examples of finding them.